Hey everyone, and that says that I'm live, so I must be live. Good to see you all. I'm trying something new with the mic settings, which will mean less of the surrounding fan noise from over there should be coming through, except it also means the sound will be very small. I'm not sure if it's too low or not. Turn up your volume, I guess. I mean, how well can you hear me? I guess I can. I've got this on tonight so that I can hear my own voice back. I'm getting a bit radio. How can you hear me? How's my voice? Is the sound better than usual? I certainly hope so. If you can see my mouth. So yes, how's it going? I'm good to see you all. I'm very sorry for the it sounds like everyone's watching the ice hockey right now. I would be watching, except the whole reason I do this on Sunday nights is that my wife is watching Liverpool play soccer at the moment. And it's called soccer. Well, anyway, each their own. But as a result, I don't have access to the TV, so I come here and I do geeky stuff like this. Very good to see you all. Yay. I don't know who to go for, honestly. Like, the Canadians are really nice people, and I often talk about how much, as a Kiwi, I feel like we have in common with Canadians, but at the same time, a sport like ice hockey, that's like the one sport you really expect. You expect the Canadians to kind of go and clean up. And from that perspective, I don't know, you kind of want to go for the underdog a little bit. I mean, the Swedes are definitely very lagan people. They're very nice, they're easygoing. I don't know, it's like battle of the nice people. How are you supposed to... It's like watching a fight between two really, really nice guys. I don't know, which do you go for, yes. Anyway, the sound is actually pretty good. I can hear it back at the moment as well. By the way, I got these today. These are pretty cool. Well, these are these blue light blocking things. I thought I'd try them out. This is the first time I'm trying them right now, actually. It does actually say, I don't know if you can make that out. Made in Korea. Made in Korea, $70. But truth is, in Japan, no one wears glasses anymore, almost, really. Only old people. Most young people, I mean, everyone wears contacts. And it's one thing as well, like, certainly when I came to Japan in the 90s, first, like when I was in high school, everybody wore glasses. It's like Japan must have some of the worst eyes, the worst rates of bad eyesight in the world. And you come around now and nobody wears glasses. And I guess those who do really choose to do so for fashion, which is where it was surprising going over to Korea, as I sometimes do for work. I like Korea. I like going over there. And everyone there wears glasses, and it's like cool and trendy. So I guess it's naturally, it makes sense, I guess. I was just looking today. I was looking at these PC things. Apparently, they make your eyes less tired. I don't know if people actually use this. Tell me if you do, and if they're actually working. I'm going to try it out because I'm one of these people who does definitely sit up with my iPad and my iPhone and on my RSS reader reading too much. You can see my tweets and everything going out late at night because I'm doing that. So I thought I'd try to save myself a bit of pain and see if these things actually work. Sounds like Liverpool just scored. And yeah, they're pretty cool. I do have my big goofy ones. These were the closest to big and goofy that I can get. It's another thing as well as a Caucasian in Japan. Buying glasses or sunglasses or anything like that. I mean, fortunately, I don't actually need glasses. But the frames, they look cool on... Sometimes you see frames and they look really cool on a Japanese person, but then I try them out on my Caucasian face. And they're often kind of narrow and they kind of pop out the sides. They're made for kind of bigger heads. And they just don't quite look right on someone with my shaped face. However, I quite like these. Probably they're not Japanese ones, that's why. I mean, Japan has great glasses, but they don't seem to fit me very well. How are we all? I'm going to kick it off by saying hello to everyone. I actually have not updated my Flipboard magazine before today, like I usually would. So that is a shame. Go Canada and go Sweden. I don't know. I mean, seriously, it's like I love Ace of Base on the one hand, and I like beer on the other. I mean, I can't see how anyone can really lose. It is interesting. A lot of Americans were tweeting me like, "What are you doing having a show during the ice hockey gold medal match?" They're talking about during the big gold medal match. I'm like, honestly, the rugby isn't going to be part of the Olympics for another few years yet. which I'm very much looking forward to. I must admit, though, I haven't watched much of the ice hockey, but it's a sport I do respect as a rugby-loving New Zealander. So anyway, let's get into it. Razal, good to see you, man. Good to have you back. Darth JF, awesome. I hope you made some foods to booyah. Oh, someone already downvoted it. I don't know. There used to actually be a guy. There was somebody who would like try to get in, like, as soon as I uploaded a video. They must like get a mobile phone update, and they would actually go in and downvote. So every time the first thing would be like a single downvote. I don't care. I really don't care. I'm actually almost admire the effort, but really, yeah. Well, who cares? The sound is awesome. The comments are beside the video. What more could you ask for other than a good-looking lady who's better at conversation? Who wants that? Joseph Mulan, I don't know why it's showing your comment as spam. I'm going to mark it not spam, but these YouTube comments are just messed up, and it won't let me show your comment as not spam, even though it's not spam. Ugh. Okay, so Saikindo, because of what we were discussing last week, you were wondering whether I've seen the link posted by Tofuga and the Yakuza and the Tokyo Olympics. I'd post, but YouTube doesn't like it. Well, so actually, okay, and actually this is a good reminder to me. Jake Adelstein, or Adelstein, something actually I've got to be careful about. The Steins and the Steins. Anyhow, he messaged me this week, and he says he's ready. So probably not this week, maybe next week, although I've got to settle the date with him. We're going to get him on, but that was Jake Adelsteins. On the Daily Show, he was called Jake Adelstein, so that probably is the correct name. So I'm going to switch from saying Steen all the time. So he's coming on. That's his article. That was his big thing, and it's kind of going off. I think I saw Tofuga's posted a couple of things, although that doesn't spring to mind exactly which one that was. But yes, it's been a big topic, and a lot of construction money, a lot of money being thrown around, a lot of construction going on, and where there is construction and public works in Japan, there is definitely Yakuza, as I'm sure Mr. Adelstein himself will explain to us. There's slush funds, there's rigged bids, there's all kinds of stuff which, the good Yakuza people do seem to enjoy. I'm just going to go make sure that my windows are all minimized. It does make a bit of a noise, but actually it's pretty good. Tell me, am I right? The sound is pretty good, I think. I'm listening in on myself. Anyway, some more greetings to you all. Stubuya, good to see you. Nonbiri Hitol, great name, good to see you. Joseph Mulan, yeah, good topic there. Do the Bane voice for the intro. The Bane. I'm going to lose some cred here. I haven't actually seen that one. I know he's like got the big mouth thing and everything. I don't know, and the Batman movies are actually as a rule pretty good. By the way, there is that new Marvel Comics space hero. I saw the trailer. Oh god, what's it called? It's like Space Commandos or something. Galaxy something. Anyway, someone who knows the name. It's actually, it looks pretty awesome actually. I'll get back into this stuff, but yeah, the only movies I get to watch are on airplanes, which isn't that often. So I haven't actually seen that. I'm sorry. Itarashai Stubuya, yeah, well, whatever. White Magic, yes, you can watch it live. I hope you're with us live. Kicking it. I hope they go Canada and Sweden. Go both of them. I hope it's a draw. That way everyone will hate me for saying that equally. Barringer. Canadians wishing to be Canadians. Yeah, someone was asking me, are they Canadians wishing... In fact, if that means that Barringer is what is it? Subbeck. Is that right? Well, I think someone just asked me that question. I don't know what's going on with that. It's actually Americans wishing to be Canadians. There's a lot of Americans who seem to be into watching the final, even though America's not in it. So credit to those Americans, who I jokingly said were Americans wishing they were Canadians. Again, I'm from the small country, so I'm used to... It's nice to reverse it every now and then. Yes, a Twitter user, Subbeck, asked me, who are these Canadians wishing to be Canadians? I don't know. Canadians are not very nationalistic people. It's a characteristic they share in common with New Zealand, which makes me wonder if they're... Well, there again, you do meet some nationalist Canadians every now and then, although they're pretty rare. Ahmed Zombie, good to see you as always, my good man. Sean Goss, good to see you. They had a report on Japanese killing dolphins on 60 Minutes earlier tonight. Reminded reminded Sean Goss of me, because of course I killed dolphins in my spare time. No, actually no. So actually this is another thing that I meant to get done tonight before the show. I'm going to add Japanese text to my blog on Taiji. Very nice lady, married to a Japanese man, and I think the lady is concerned. She's from the conservationist point of view on the Taiji hunt. The husband's from the stop picking on Japanese perspective, and they both seem to like my blog, which is wonderful. So he actually translated the whole thing word for word, and I was going to do a real detailed review of it, and I've read it a couple of times, and it's great because he's put it. I could write it in Japanese, but it wouldn't be that good. But he did it just a really natural review of it, translation of it. So in the end of the day, I could spend another 2 weeks fixing it up, or I could just post it. And I'm going to bite the bullet and post it. I just asked how the person wanted permission. I won't put it on for now, but it's going to go up very soon. So there'll be a bilingual version of that blog. And yeah, I'd be interested to hear or to see. I guess it'll come up sooner or later. How the topic was covered on 60 Minutes. I do hope that they don't take the easy route on 60 Minutes and go for the outrage angle, which is the easy one to go for, but it's not the right one. You know, for the reasons I explained in my blog. You know, are they going for the problem solution perspective, which is, if you ask me, how all issues should be dealt with, or are they going for the, oh my God, those horrible people, which they could be doing? Who knows? So yeah, Darth JF, speaking of Canada as a Finn, I didn't realize you were Finnish. Good to see you. Same linguistic group as Korean and Japanese and Mongol, right? The Finnish. It's an interesting, and Hungarian. Random stuff. I don't know a lot about Finland except that Santa Claus lives there. Although apparently Norway disputes that. It gets kind of ugly. Half of Finland is occupied by Russia still, but you know, that's all kind of tough. Finns seem to be pretty easygoing people. Good rally drivers. Love that. Although, why am I telling you about Finland? But yes, as a result, you're hoping that Canada butt traps. I'm sorry, that's my cursor. Butt trapes. Oh, butt rapes. Sweden in Olympic hockey today. I'm guessing you're not a big fan of Ace of Base then either in that case. I don't know. It kind of works for me. Who knows? Well, okay. Well, I for one hope that Canada does not actually do that to Sweden. They're nice people. They wouldn't do that. But who knows? Okay, that's a clear opinion. Looks like, however, according to Ahmed, that Canada's going to win. They're leading 2-0 in the third period. Someone mentioned, what are you going to do? You're going to be starting the live show in the middle of the third period. I was like, what, are you at school? Who says the period? Of course, it's American. Oh, it's actually, so someone straighten this out for me. Is ice hockey an American sport, or is it a Canadian sport that the Americans took over and pretend is an American sport? Because National Hockey League, you know, they seem to, well, and believe me, coming from New Zealand, I'm very familiar with having a big neighbor taking credit for all of our good stuff. But is this true? Is it really a Canadian? Where does ice hockey come from? But third period, go for it. You know, goes well. In that case, if Canada's winning, go Sweden. You know, go Sweden. Actually, what do Finns have as a problem with the Swedes? How can anyone not like Sweden? I guess I'm about to find. I have Norwegian friends, and they do like to poke fun. Although, frankly, between Fish and Ace of Base, I don't really know which side to take. So yeah. Narcissus asking me, anyone see Men's Health post on Facebook last night saying, yeah, but USA Ice Hockey is better? No, I did not. Is Men's Health, you know, a few of those Men's Health things are like, I think there was a askmen.com, Ask Men, and someone posted me some links when that site first went. I don't know what it's like now, but it was basically like a bunch of Clio magazine writers thought, why don't we pretend to be really what we imagine men are like, and write a magazine for them. So it's basically a bunch of gossipy women or effeminate gay people who are trying really hard to be what they must imagine butchers. I remember getting these really cringingly horrible, hard to read articles kind of forwarded at that time. I'm hoping that Men's Health is not like that, and I hope that Ask Men has gotten better. They actually covered a lot of really interesting topics, but they were just so hard and embarrassing to read at the time. But yeah, Men's Health. I don't know, what is men's health, honestly? Is it like try to, have some celery while you drink your beer? I don't get it. Men have always been very anti-health. In Japan, men are pro-health, honestly. They'll tell you, I remember my first few weeks in Japan, I put on some weight. My Japanese dude friends are like, dude, you put on weight. And I'm like, I'm a guy. Surely that makes it irrelevant. But no, you're not allowed to. All those same kind of pressures are put on guys. I know. I have friends who have male Japanese friends who have been anorexic. All the same sort of pressures there apply. So perhaps they need a men's health. Who knows? Well, and you know what? I just realized what that term means in Japanese as well. Everybody. I remember actually, this is actually one of my criticisms of Jake Elstein's book, by the way. For those of you who don't know, health is the euphemistic term applied to a certain type. There's like 100 different categories of sex, but not quite sex, establishments in Japan. None of them offer full, penis and vagina sex per se, but they offer everything, short of that. I think health is pretty much, I can't remember the nuance of how it was explained, but it's basically, it's basically a brothel without official full-on sex. And, one of the criticisms I had of Jake Adelstein's book was, apparently, he says one of his stories is that he gets assigned to Kabuki-sho after having been in Japan for like some years at this point and having worked in a Japanese company around Japanese guys. And, at the first press conference where they hit a prostitution ring and they were using, Japanese sex service type slang, and he had no idea what the slang meant. And he had a vice cop give him a tour of Kabuki-sho, introducing him to all of it, which works fantastically as a plot device, or when you have Harry Potter acting as Jake Adelstein in this movie, it'll work out great. But it doesn't make any sense because I have lots of Japanese dude friends, and a lot of them do nothing but talk about this sort of stuff like all the time. And as a guy, of course, it's interesting. And I remember one guy just like drinking beer after we'd been surfing, just sitting back in the sun and just saying for like 10 minutes, isn't it just brilliant how we live in a culture where not only do we recognize that, it's healthy to do, but they actually call places where you pay to go and get it out health. That's just the most genius marketing move ever thought of by anyone. He went on for like 10 minutes just about how wonderful the term health was in Japan. I realize that's completely inappropriate. I'm going to move on now. As you see, I can pretty much digress deeply and embarrassingly on almost any comment that you throw at me. Now we're getting up to the sound, so we are well into this. 20 minutes ago now. Okay, the sound is good, all good. Everyone can hear me. Awesome, sweet. Parent commenting, giving the nature of ice hockey. Not surprised to hear. If it's Canadian, maybe the halftime show. See, I was just asking Edo Inoue about this as well. I thought like, when he said intermission, I thought like all American sports intermissions, you had like a Mariah Carey concert. If it's Canadian, well, he was saying they just go and pee and drink beer, which I assume is done at the same time. No, I won't say baby seal bashing. I live in Japan. No country's perfect. They all have their animal abuse issues. Don't even get people started on New Zealand. Yes, Ahmed, everyone commenting, the sound is no background sound, so that is awesome. I survived the danger zone. I made it through orbital re-entry. I set up without a hitch today. Touch wood. Boom, boom. Which you can't hear on the mic, so it's going well. Actually, having this earpiece in, which is attached to the mic, it allows me to... I should have done this all along, but it lets me check that my voice is actually going through properly, and if I'm like crackling out, and if I'm like if noise is coming through, and this works. And look at this Canadian, so Claude Speed. Well, actually, let me come back up. Actually, I'm skipping too many, but this is pretty good. KHKYNS, thank you for the confirmation, and from Emily Louise Maitland, you're lovely. Everyone says the sound is good, except for the fact that I'm speaking. It's okay. I always like to punch myself in the face before anyone else can. It's like confuses people. Ras Yama, Mount Russ. Sounds good. A little bit quiet, but yeah. Just pump up the sound. Do what you like. Nobody hito. Indeed, I made it through the. I've had so many technical problems with my Vio. Sony stopped. Sony's selling Vio. I know I complain a lot about Vio, but only because they're beautiful. They're high spec. You know, and if they just made them at better quality, that'd be the best computer ever. And I do love my Vio. It really is a computer I bought to last for like 6 or 7 years, and it's so far doing that. It's still, you know, I bought it like 3 or 4 years ago, and it still edits HD video like a pro, and it's awesome. But, you know, I just have USB devices randomly failing. I lost a hard disk just randomly. I didn't do anything to my computer, and it just broke. I don't know, whoever buys it, I hope that they do better with the quality on them, but they are awesome, beautiful machines. But it does make a bit of noise. What can I say? I mean, you know, all of these solid state drives and these awesome things which are coming out, I guess probably in maybe about a year, I'm gonna get something new. But indeed, I made it through. Narcissus turned up their volume, but then someone mailed and eardrums exploded. Sorry about that. Indeed, Saluki-san, I need a TV in every room. We do. I used to do that, but I don't know now, because most of what we watch is on satellite TV or cable TV, and you need separate tuners to be able to watch in multiple rooms. We just got rid of all the extra TVs, and we watch less TV as a result, which is really dumb on the cable TV provider's part, if you ask me. The most recent tuner that I actually got a Sony one which lets you watch on your iPhone other channels. It'll stream from the device, which sounds cool, except it doesn't really work outside of like 20 meters away from the TV. It doesn't work very well in the next room. It takes a long time. It's a bit choppy. So it's a nice idea, just not well executed, unfortunately. But yes. Canadians are apparently cleaning house, or they were when that comment was made by Claude Speed 30. So yes, rooting for Sweden because New York Rangers goalie is playing for them. And actually, this is a lot like soccer as well. Obviously, and you know, you have a lot of in UK. There are hardly any actual English players, and that makes it interesting for my wife, who follows the Premier League. And when you have the World Cup, you have all the players from her clubs that she likes playing in different countries. Gives you something to support, which is cool. Although at the same time, I think it's also part of the reason that England can't win any World Cups anymore, because they hardly have any of their own players in their own top league anymore. How does that work out in America? But you know, the NHL it's a really impressive competition, no question. It's a model for a lot of other pro competitions. Hey, Rosal Gul, I know that you said that to me 20 minutes ago, but I'm good. I hope you are too. Stubuya, who just said he'd be back in 20 or so, is probably back by now anyway. AC Kizai, or Kizai, you know, AC Kizai. I get what that means now. Want to ask me a question. How do I know how classical art is viewed in Japan? Is there any market for it, or is it mainly anime and manga? That's a good question. Classical art. So when you say classical art, I guess you have to think. Are you thinking of East? Well, there's 3 categories I can really think of. There's Japanese classical, you know, old-fashioned Japanese art. There's East Asian or Asian classical, Chinese, Korean, Buddhist art, and there's what I think of classical art, which is European, you know, including both ancient classical and Renaissance classical. I studied classical history and art history myself, actually. It's a wonder I have a job. So I guess someone, Darth JF makes the comment that there's a market for any kind of art in Japan, and certainly, I mean, not classical. If you're talking about ancient classical, I don't know, but certainly things like the Van Gogh, the flowers photo. Some of the biggest prices ever paid for art have been paid by Japanese collections and collectors. It's a bit like I don't really know in depth. One thing I do find with Japan, one thing I find very frustrating, again, as an art history student, I've got a bad habit. I love going to art museums, and I'll spend, like when I went to MoMA in New York, I spent as much time in the shop, probably 2 hours in the shop and 2 hours in the museum. And I was in the shop going through all the prints of all the paintings, some of them which weren't on display, and trying to pick out my favorite ones to take home to New Zealand and to get put into, frames and get mounted at home, which, you can do pretty cheap. You can get a nice glass frame for it for like, $30-40. You get the print for about $20. It might have changed a little bit now, but you can have, really nice art around your house. Well, easily under $100 budget. What I find in Japan, framing is hugely expensive. It's not easy to do, and prints are like, I've seen prints, like a print of a classical picture that will cost hundreds of dollars, and it doesn't make any sense. It's a print. So my personal love of art, I find hard. At the same time, they have fantastic exhibitions here, and people tour here and all that sort of stuff, and that's awesome. Some of my favorites, there was a Miro exhibition. I mean, actually in Ueno, art in the Ueno art gallery and so on, they have some of the real world-class art exhibitions. If you want to come to consume and view art, Tokyo in Japan is a fantastic place for that. So I guess you could say that it is viewed and appreciated. And Japanese are pretty diligent with their studying as well. Like, people who are into the art will know a lot about the history and fact and so on behind it. There is another thing, though, this whole thing about buying lots of art, particularly during the bubble. The Sunflowers by Van Gogh being a famous example of this. It wasn't really done out of a love for the art per se. It was done out of, it was a kind of a good investment, like golf courses in Hawaii, and it was kind of a status thing to be buying it. And yeah, I have friends, for example, French friends who import like wine, expensive wines, and like a good French waiter providing wine, they kind of have contempt for the customers who, I've heard people express contempt, saying that honestly you could put alcoholic Ribena in these things and they wouldn't know the difference, which is horrible actually for a guy who makes his money selling expensive wine to Japanese people. There is a questioning even amongst, like, in that kind of industry, as to whether people really understand, whether there's a genuine interest. I'd say there's a very, very healthy, there's enough of a healthy interest in classical art that they have posters on billboards and train stations, and and no question, the big the big tours, they last for a long time, and they're very completely sold out. So that's not to say I think the general population, it probably wouldn't, it's not a large part of the population, but there's enough, obviously there's just enough people in Japan, and there's enough well-educated people that there's a huge market for that sort of thing. When I say market, just to go and watch and see good art. So I'm going to refresh, because I've caught up on comments, and I imagine that they're actually gone a lot further than I see. And indeed they have. So I'm going to come back, and I'm going to race through these, because I'm going to get to the talking topics. It's halfway through now. So indeed, Bradley Ford, the timing of the show is perfect. Well, I'm glad it's perfect for you. It's always good to be perfect for somebody. I try, Narcissus, oh dear. Liverpool 2, Swansea 2. I'm going to have to keep a low profile after this is done, if that's the case. Thank you. Claude Speed 30, these are non-prescription lenses. These are blue light blocking glasses. Tell the truth, I have good eyes. Well, reasonably good. They're getting worse all the time. 3-2 Narcissus. So I'm praying that you mean 3 Liverpool or Sweden. I don't know. It's all good. So, AC Kiza is asking, so there are any classical studies in school that teach oil painting and such, if I can name some? Well, okay, I'm not a teacher, I don't really know a lot about the education system here. People who know, please help AC Kiza out. I don't know, there's a lot of fantastic artists in Japan. I don't know how much art history is taught. Art history as well, the way that I was taught, is a very linear, ancient Rome to modern Europe to, American pop art and abstract impressionism, and it's a European timeline that excludes Japanese kind of and art in other part of the world kind of comes in very much in the 20th century. And when you think about it, it's a pretty insulting, well, it's the way a lot of culture and history is viewed throughout the world, but it's pretty insulting to the, fantastic and very different line of art history that, of course, exists in parallel, both in, you take in places like China, India, and Japan. And Japan, in its own ways, had much more advanced art at some time periods than existed in Europe. So, and that's what makes art in Japan so interesting, I think, because you don't have the same linear influences that everyone is kind of used to, the same traditions. You've got a much more diverse set of traditions which people are drawing upon. The whole European tradition combined with all this other stuff that you have in Japan. Creative people in Japan, to me, are like the most awesome people in all the genres: music, design, architecture. And the fact that the society suppresses creativity so much, and it does. It's a very difficult society to be creative. If you're a creative person or you're in a creative industry, they don't pay, it's not valued, they don't pay you any money. Creativity itself isn't valued really to be a good salary man or to get a good high-paying job. I guess it's that balance. You have to be obedient, you have to be a good worker, but keep that creativity and initiative and stuff buried down inside and release it later on. Timing. If you release it too much too early, they won't trust you. But there again, you can get up to the top and have nothing left. Some people do make it through, no question. I've worked with some very, very smart and very creative Japanese people, but the most creative people and some of my favorite people are people who are really almost in poverty professions, which is a shame. But you can have great art. Maybe it's not so different to America. Actually, you can have great art history conversations with them. I guess I kind of like it as well. Not that I like art, although I'm not really an artist, obviously. Moss Spider. Someone came up with a theory that short-sightedness is on the rise in urban areas due to the decrease in green space, and I think I find that theory plausible as you do. In Japan, well, there's a thing. Japanese often talk about, they have this, some people have an exaggerated idea that no one in Africa needs glasses, and everyone in Japan does. And they talked about this more when everyone had glasses and not lenses. And I think it comes from, certainly in New Zealand, people have good eyes. And no question to me, it comes from having long horizontal views all the time, which you do, is true. You don't have them in Japan. Plus, of course, they're reading in bad light a lot. But no question, I was lucky. I grew up in a lot of small country towns and had a lot of big natural views around me all the time. And I think it helped my eyesight. Which reminds me, we should get to the Hitler books, the Hitler ripping books. I'll do a note about that. Hitler just lost every debate in the internet. Okay. Narcissists also wondering about the short-sightedness being from all the time they spend staring at textbooks. Well, yes, and they do spend a lot of time staring at textbooks, although it would seem, I don't know, half the time they're being told they're looking too much at textbooks, and half the time it sounds like they're not looking at them enough. And I don't know, they always say that the modern history gets skipped over because they focus so much on ancient history that they kind of skip over it at the end and they miss the whole modern history bit. Which, let's face it, isn't really important at all, is it? But yes, Darth JF, Guardians of the Galaxy. See, everyone's got Guardians of the Galaxy. Wow, I'm like 35 minutes behind now, but thank you for that. That is awesome. Philomena Young, nice to meet you. And see, everybody's cracking. That's how you got it. Sean Goss, yes, I don't know Bane. The second one with Heath Ledger. Yes, I saw the one with Heath Ledger and it was awesome. And yeah, I don't know. Oh, I must admit, I saw Brokeback Mountain. Heath Ledger, he played a lot of great roles, and I think he was an Australian who was actually an Australian and not a New Zealander who was claimed by Australia. Brokeback Mountain was really interesting. I watched that and I was kind of interested to see, well, okay, here's this breakthrough movie about cowboys falling in love, and I'm like, oh, okay, so how does this work? Is this just going to be like a love story with two dudes? And I was kind of like, let's see the flirtatious signals, the subtle, how do they cross the threshold? But the first scene where the guys kind of come out to one another, more or less, I kind of burst out laughing. It was sudden and rough and a little bit like, really? I'm pretty No, if that maybe that's how it happens, and this is maybe proof that I'm further away from it than I even thought I was. I would be calling a total timeout on that situation. I don't know. Should you watch Brokeback Mountain? No question, he was a good actor, and it was an interesting movie and a challenging movie. And why not do that genre? I mean, that's why it's kind of like, I'm an open-minded modern guy. But when the first lovemaking scene comes, I was like, oh damn, what? I'm liberal. I'm not that liberal. But good on them. So long as I don't know about it, it's awesome. I mean, in terms of behind closed doors and all that, it's totally okay with me. But I found that the movie portrayal was a bit jarring. Perhaps it was intended. But he was in a lot of good movies, and I thought his rendition of the Joker was awesome. And it's a shame some of those good actors, they just have a lot of, it's because they have flaws that they're good actors, right? In terms of they have issues or whatever. Of course, there was the guy, oh God, who played Picotti, I think, and he was in Boogie Nights, and that guy who had heroin and died. What is it with that? Good people, I mean, a lot of people said, well, he can't be that good the way that he died. It doesn't matter how he died. He made some great movies, honestly, and rest in peace. Rest in peace. Claude Speed talking about, hey, Padawan Kim, good to see you. Hello. Are you still in You're in Matsue, I believe? I was watching your videos a while ago now, but good to see you. Kantensai, good to see you. Ahmed Zombia, the Jimmy Kimmel Wolfprank, I haven't seen it. I guess the medal's probably been decided by now by the comments. Claude Speed pointing out that Americans tend to be very self-hating or extremely jingoistic. Every country is. It's just Americans have a bit of a higher profile, but everybody's the same, honestly, in the same proportions probably as well. Ice hockey was invented in Canada by the British based on field hockey. Well, there you go. It is a Canadian sport, so respect. No, I can dig. As a rugby player, I can definitely dig ice hockey. Started in Quebec. Well, wait a minute. Now I see some controversy because Narcissus is saying it was invented by the British in Canada, and Dave Girard is saying it was invented in Quebec by the occupying British troops. I don't know. How does that work? It sounds like a bit of... Is it like a French sport? Am I going to get in trouble for saying that? Who knows? Yes, and Kankenai is pointing out indeed. That's right. We can have... Baron just saying that we can... Oh, actually, I've skipped a couple, but we can have Russell Crowe back. No, you can have Russell Crowe back. As far as I'm concerned, Russell Crowe is like the most Australian man I have ever seen. So Machine 977, the Finns are forced to learn Swedish in school, which doesn't make much sense. That might be why. That's right, because Finns don't speak Scandinavian language. Finns are kind of like an older, it's a different language group, same as Japanese. That's why, perhaps. I don't know. I'm sorry, that in my experience, Finns are all excellent at English. Like, they're better than a lot of English people. So, if they can speak Swedish and Finnish, and I guess a few of them Russian, it's all good for the brain. It's all good for the brain, good for the soul. Kankenai pointing out, as a Canadian, non-American, he's very glad that he doesn't have to fight for who's going to keep Bieber. Now, you know how we feel with Australians and Russell Crowe, although honestly, if we're going to have a fight over someone who we want to disown, I prefer it be over Russell Crowe than Justin Bieber. But I see. So someone's Pergunar Eriksson pointing out that the Sweden-Finland banter relates mainly to when Sweden used to occupy. Finland was part of Sweden. Well, Finland's had a rough ride then, haven't they? I guess everyone wants Santa. Hey, if you're in a country next door to Santa Claus, I'd want to take it over. It would make perfect sense. And Joseph Mullen saying that Koreans are pro health as well. Well, kimchi is the healthiest food in the world. Korean tourist book here got counted Finnish, Turkish and Korean as related languages, but in Finland we don't count Turk languages being related to us, so it's a bit weird. So I see. Sweden, Finland is a bit like Scotland, England, which makes sense in the context of the other comment before that. It has to do with a bit of old history. Now, well, it looks like Canada won. Some smiles and some down faces. Well, I enjoy it, Canada, because, England invented soccer and look at what happened to them. So it's good. I'm very glad for you that you can still win your sport. So congratulations, commiserations to the Swedes. I mean, no one ever likes to see a Swedish person sad. Although, Swedish ladies look beautiful when they are sad. And pretty much any other time, which is a good enough reason to support. So, shame about that. Stabia, welcome back. Congrats to Canada anyway. It's the final gold medal of the games. Robert, 1967, welcome to the show, and yay, Canada. Ricardo, 22448, all the skating goes to Netherlands, so you're happy. Yay, the Netherlands. And congratulations to the Netherlands for somehow getting through and winning lots of skating medals and somehow not having war declared upon you by Korea. That was great. It's not easy to do. Stabuya, asking if have I ever been to the amusement park in Tokyo Midtown? There is a kind of an expo area out the back where they do lots of things. I don't think I've ever been to an amusement park, although I've seen things. They have like an ice skating rink and different sorts of stuff. I don't think I've ever been to an amusement park there, however. I was buying children's books for my son today, which was part of the topic I was planning to get to, but it's been 45 minutes. I'm still doing comments, which is a good thing. I mean, this is what the primary purpose of this show is. And Narcissus is asking me if I've been reading up on the Scottish independence vote. He's half English, half Scottish, pro-union, but sometimes one wish you could get a new passport so you could give the finger to the Tories. Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I come from a country with a flag that has, of course, the Scottish flag merged in and that little Union Jack part in the corner. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of been very interesting to see, what is it, Manuel Barroso, I think, that the EU something or other from Spain, and obviously in Spain they're terrified of seeing a precedent of a smooth transition of Scotland becoming an EU country, because of course Catalonia will want to do the same thing. So he's saying, oh, you can't do that, or oh, Scotland will have to leave the EU, which of course is BS. Scotland's a model European country. If it was going to be that, it seems a little bit weird to me that they'd want to devolve. I mean, I kind of get it. They want to get a bit more attention. They feel like more money goes down to the south and not a lot comes back, and they don't get proper respect and people forget about them and screw the Tories and all that sort of stuff. But in the end of the day, yeah, it'd be as someone of also Northern English and some Scottish ancestry in the far past, and from a country founded by Britain, and understanding Britain, and as a rugby lover, understanding that Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and frankly Ireland as well, let's throw it in there, they're all parts. There's a lot of shared history, good and bad, but that's kind of part of the magic that makes up Britain. I don't know, it's like, for me, it's like watching a really, really old couple, like really, really old. It's like your grandparents having a divorce. It's just sad. Why do you need to do that, honestly? Yeah, I guess it just makes me a little bit sad, but of course I don't live there, and it's up to the people of Scotland to decide if they really want to go about and do that, and why they want to do that. But there again, it'll be a sign of the greatness, if you ask me, of Britain, that it'll be able, if it goes through a peaceful separation. I mean, it'll also pretty much seal the decline of Britain and England, I guess, ultimately. Well, it will be when Wales goes, or certainly if Cornwall goes in the end. But there again, they had a great empire. They conquered everyone, and eventually now even the home countries are breaking off. If that's the case, and that'll be kind of sad. But I guess it's kind of a soft, quiet ending, which is how most empires, great empires end. It's a shame, but it is what it is. A circle of life. I hope that Scotland stays, and they stay by their own choice. But it's their choice. It's up to them, and good on Britain for going along and letting them have the referendum and giving them the option, so that nobody's being forced into anything. All but one player apparently in the Swedish hockey team plays in US and Canada, which is, I guess, it's a mixed thing, because I guess it means all the players were very well understood. But there again, it's natural. It's like the Premier League in Britain. They all go and play in the best competition, and that's pretty natural. And there is apparently for Kizai, CA Kizai, AC Kizai. Subuya just mentioning there's a Monet exhibition on at the moment at Ueno. There's always something awesome on at Ueno, by the way, and I haven't been going to those things for years. But yeah, they're pretty cool. You know, all the art history stuff, classical art that you could want is definitely here. So now again, I refresh the comments here. They never work properly, but anyway, Alex Stratus standing by. Claude Speed. How did I start wearing non-prescription lenses? Honestly, I just thought these wonderful, goofy. They're actual sunglasses, these that I got from Uniqlo. They're like 500 yen. They're super cheap, and I just thought they made me look geekier. And why not? Why not? So, you know, but now I'm actually wearing these. Actually have a purpose and a function. So I might stick with these, or I might go back to the big fat ones. But yeah, tell the truth, I always kind of wanted to have glasses. I come from a country where a lot of people have good eyes. So who knows? Stag Times is asking, did I have to take SPI test to get a job in Japan? How did I prepare? I did not. I don't know what the SPI test is. Basically, each job I've had in one way or another has been through different connections or different, personal contacts, some CV build up in the background, some headhunters, some good luck. It's all those things. Contacts are very important, though. But yeah, and remember, I started out here, 15 years ago, so it's a very different thing now, and I can't really give very good advice. Darth JF pointing out that European art history has just been about recycling what the Greeks and Romans did. It's gone a little bit beyond that now. I mean, give it some credit, but certainly up until the 19th century or the 18th century, a big portion of it was still trying to just figure out how the Romans and the Greeks did what they did 2,000 years before. Narcissus, thanks for the update. Good to hear that Liverpool is ahead of Swansea, but what the hell is with Liverpool's defence that there's 2 goals let in? Yeah, you know, and Ahmed Zombia reminding that how a lot of the Greek and Roman art came in through Andalusia, which is interesting. So you're talking about, of course, Carthage, which my good friend Ahmed will be familiar with, is one of the, actually, and on all through North Africa, some of the best preserved Roman and Greek cities, and this is my classical art history stuff coming through, are there. I didn't realize that a lot of that art was traded in through Andalusia. However, it makes sense. Unfortunately in Europe, a lot of the stuff was kind of destroyed or got buried. So that's interesting, But that's right. People forget that, North Africa, a very, very connected part of ancient Greeks and ancient Rome. I mean, it's gone out of visibility a little bit more today. But, those were as much as part of Greece and Italy as, as the islands in the Mediterranean are today. Yeah, so KHKYNYS talking about as a student. Yeah, there's a lot of between Game Boys and studying and the thing here. Not a lot of eyes get through unharmed in Japan, unfortunately. Which, yeah, that certainly seems to be what I observe as well. Saluki-san saying that the world is a better place when you walk outside and everything is a blur. So you don't mind being nearsighted. I don't know. I had perfect eyesight when I came to Japan. I completely topped my first test. I used to practice reading like bus numbers, like way off in the distance and stuff like that. But my eyes aren't that good now. Padawan Kimura in Yamaguchi now, lovely place. Still fairly close to Shimane indeed. I've been to Yamaguchi a few times, have fantastic food. They're good people. Big fan of Yamaguchi. And Yamaguchi is also kind of de facto. A lot of the people there go to university in Fukuoka, which I also love, so that's all awesome. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. There's something about you want to know. Yes, indeed. If you're nearsighted, you do want to know if there's a lion actually nearby. Rasu-san. I get it now. Rasu-san. We'll both take Russell Crowe and Justin Bieber, just as long as someone else has Piers Morgan. we can trade. So it looks like a deal's been cut. Ra's al Ghul has agreed to that. So there you go. Bradley Ford not believing you actually do want Bieber. But so long as no one has to take that Toronto mayor, I would take Bieber over that. So yeah. Ahmed Zombia brings up a very interesting point right now about countries going through civil strife, which I have been following and I've been very disturbed by lately. He identifies Thailand, Ukraine, Belgium, Spain. And this is in the context of Scotland again. Venezuela, well, I don't know if they're going to split up. Ukraine's a funny one because Ukraine really is, or has always been part of Russia. You know, it kind of had this kind of pseudo-independence. You know, as a country, Ukraine never really existed before the Soviet Union, and now it's got this independence. But, you know, and they did have a kind of an identity during the you know, World War II and so on, but they've never really had a proper nation to back up the identity that they have. And, of course, some parts of Ukraine are definitely very, very deeply Russian identity. So I don't know, it's kind of the chaos going on there over there kind of bewilders me. And then you've got Venezuela, a lot of the same stuff and stuff which I was tweeting the other day. There's some YouTube videos going on at the moment which are practically identical in Ukraine and in Venezuela. There's a video I saw in Ukraine of a sniper picking off protesters, who I might add, a lot of the protesters do appear to be armed, and there appear to be a lot of very unpleasant people. And it's like Syria. Everyone seems to like to have simple narratives of these conflicts. They like this idea in Syria, the government's horrible, so of course we have to support the opposition, who must be, you know, if they're opposed to the government, they must be the good guys. But no one ever seemed to really think, well, no one in power or influence ever really seemed to think through the process that if this is a jihadi-based conflict, that you're going to have a lot of people that you also don't like in the opposition. And it was like reported by the BBC as a shock that they found that Al-Qaeda was involved in, you know, that a lot of the opposition in Syria were Al-Qaeda supporters or Al-Qaeda backed. What in the hell were they expecting? And they're giving all this money and support to them. It's exactly, I mean, you know, remember America, when I was a kid, America was like shipping weapons and money in and showing these, you know, these religious freedom fighters in Afghanistan as heroes, with kids with Stinger missiles and everything like that, you know, shooting at the Soviet Union. And these were like heroes. This was the CIA training the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, you know, I mean, they were there. They were the Saudis who were, you know, with CIA backing and money were there to fight the Soviets. And, you know, it's crazy. You oversimplify these conflicts and they come back and they bite you on the ass. As indeed, in Venezuela, I saw videos on YouTube of police just murdering students cold. I mean, just insane. I mean, how, again, coming from a military family and fortunately from a country where it's just clearly understood that, you know, the military and the police have a responsibility to protect the public, not the regime. I don't understand, when does it happen that all of a sudden police love their government so much that they're going to start shooting students without, you know, unarmed students? And you think that somehow, oh, that's what happens in communist countries and dictatorships, and, you know, but these are democratic countries that this is happening. Thailand is kind of a nice, I mean, they're so used to having coup d'etats over there that everyone's so nice about it. But, you know, the stuff with Ukraine and Venezuela, which isn't making much news, Venezuela, but they're in a bad way over there as well, and it's really depressing. I mean, I don't know, it just is. And this is exactly why, in a way, it'd be kind of a good thing if Scotland can devolve peacefully and just show that it can be done. And, you know, Spain doesn't like it, but maybe they've got to get used to that idea with Catalonia anyway. Narcissus, thanks for the update. I'm going to lock the door. Keep safe. Joseph Mulan, forget Japan. You're enjoying the ancient history discussion. And I'm going to get to it, the being a father of a half. That was what I was going to talk about today. And, yeah, Philomena Young also pointing out, you're weirded out by the people cheering on the rioters in Ukraine, given exactly how they're backed by the neo-Nazis. I didn't actually get to that point. But, yeah, a lot of those... Well, and Ukraine is a complicated country, and I've driven up to the Ukrainian border on the Romanian and the Moldovan side. I have ancient lineage going back to that part of the world, and it's a complicated. It's a very socially complicated country. There were a lot of partisans who fought both for and against the Germans in Ukraine during World War II, and there are, as there are throughout Russia and Eastern Europe, in economically depressed areas, there's a lot of skinheads and right-wingers, extreme right-wingers, who were clearly in there with guns. And again, okay, and that's why I emphasize unarmed people. I can kind of understand police, wanting to shoot armed people. And what do you do when you've got a crowd of people, of some innocent, normal protesters and some armed people? And that's why this looks to me like another case of just there's no good guys. And then so what do? Do you support the government? Do you support the protesters? And it seems to me, I get confused how the EU can be so clear-cut supporting the opposition. When the opposition, as you say, is full of neo-Nazis. And, 2 months from now, we're going to find, that's going to be officially recognized and everyone's going to act shocked. But no, it's obvious. That's not to say that all opposition in Ukraine are neo-Nazis, but you can't keep painting the story so simplistically. And actually, there was a great tweet of an article by Blake Hornshell, a great person who I follow. I have on my recommended readables list on Twitter. We had an article about how nobody really cared about Ukraine until this Freedom Square was covered in petrol bombs, and they had like tanks driving over it and with fireworks going on. And there was a spectacular kind of image. He called it porn, like this kind of human suffering porn. It was when it became kind of, when the news story had enough spectacular imagery of fire and drama, it became the top story everywhere when people never really cared about it before. And I was reading, and it was going into the thing about how superficial and how they like to inflate these stories on the most exciting sort of angles, and how they go on these images, this kind of image porn about the news and so on, and not about the real suffering, the real issues that are going on. Ukraine is a classic case, and I read it and I was just thinking anyone who's been in Japan in 2011 can relate to that exactly, because that's exactly what happened with the earthquake and the tsunami and the nuclear meltdown. Everyone was so focused on the dramatic stories when, it's not the tsunami, as terrible as it was, and it's not the nuclear power plant, it's the 400,000-500,000 people left homeless and stranded and whatever afterwards. And none of those people, the real tragedy, got no issue. They got no attention, because the Western press was too afraid to go up north and see them. And they had all the image porn they wanted from the tsunami and all the hysteria they wanted from the nuclear power plant, and they never actually covered the real issues that were going on here. And it was really depressing to be a part of, and I'm sure it's the same for people in Ukraine at the moment as well. So, and indeed, Philomena Young, history is made up of stupid people making terrible choices. That's pretty much it. Darth Jeff actually pointing out now, of course, being from Finland, you know all about getting divided up and handed round. But yes, of course, that part of Poland, Lithuania, while Russia formed around Moscow and so on. And I mean, Lithuania, used to go all the way down to the Black Sea, didn't it? Don't get me started. But yes, exactly. Eastern Europe is kind of amazing how much it's changed. I have a stepfather in Australia who's born in Serbia, but considers himself Hungarian because the Hungarian speaking, and was in one of the many towns in Hungary, which used to be a huge country, that was handed off to Romania and Serbia and all the surrounding countries after World War I. And I don't know, see, nationalism, it sucks. Play ice hockey. Learn from the Canadians and the Swedes. Sort it out that way. Don't have stupid killing each other in riots. I've hit the hour mark, which I really didn't want to cross today, but there it is. So I'm going to cover two things. The Anne Frank books is the first one. The second one is Being Dad of a Half, which I was just going to talk about, but it's nearly over now. The first thing, I know there's been some news stories about around central Tokyo. There's been something like some large number, I think about 20 libraries or something like 100 copies of Anne Frank's diaries being vandalized, having the pages ripped out. And I saw on Japan Probe and some other places how this news story was being picked up in Western news, which again, there seems to be a consensus in a lot of Western news reporting on Japan that, Abe is a fascist, Japan is swinging to the right in militarism, and any story which fits with that narrative, they pick up. And there's a perception that these seeming neo-Nazi acts of defiling of Anne Frank's diary around Tokyo, obviously by some singular nut, is how it looks to me. How this is a sign of Japan's growing fascism. I'll come back to the point I've come back on every show. Abe and the right wing in Japan didn't get any more votes they got about the same number of votes in every election. Whether the type of government in Japan and how far to the left or right it is depends purely on the election turnout of the left. And the left felt they had no one to vote for because the Democrats were such a failure. Japan has not swung to the right. Japan has a right-wing government right now, but Japan hasn't changed, and that's a false impression. Specifically on the way that this is being presented as right-wing Japanese right-wingism being synonymous with anti-Semitism. Again, go and check out Japan Probe. They come up with a very thorough rebuttal on that. In Japan's history, one of even when they were in the Axis with Germany, how they refused to have anything to do with persecuting the Jews. In terms of it had been suggested that they needed to round up all the Jews in China, in German protectorates and so on, and slaughter them, which they didn't do. And of course, there's a famous Japanese diplomat called Sugihara, who, while of his own volition, not under Japanese government orders, he was a Japanese ambassador somewhere in Europe, and he issued thousands and thousands of visas that saved thousands of Jewish lives. It gave them transit visas to get out of Europe and out of the reach of the Nazis. If you ask Japanese people, not only do they literally love Jewish people, I mean, they're like enamored with them, and they're very simplistic ideas about them as all being Albert Einstein's or Sigmund Freud's. Japanese, from an educational perspective, I think they only understand Jews by the historical achievements that Jewish people have made, and because of that, I have a small bit of Jewish heritage, which I remember when it came up in a conversation with one of my old homestays in Japan. They said, "Oh, that's why you're so smart." And it was kind of like, well, I'm actually 3/4 Yorkshire, which would go against that. But it's kind of it's funny. And not only that, but on the far right, and when you get into the loopy far right, not only do they not dislike Jewish people, a lot of Japanese people, there's a train of verifiable archaeological thought that Japanese themselves may be a lost tribe of Israel. If not all Japanese people per se, there's you should look this up. Apparently, an Israeli ambassador to Japan has been calling for the Israeli government to actually do an investigation. There's a place in Shikoku somewhere, which is like where one of these great clans who came across from the steppe and from Central Asia, called the Hata clan in Shikoku, I believe, set up around the Middle Ages or maybe the Dark Ages in Japan. And the oldest temples that they set up have menorahs. They have like 7 candle emblems all over them. The ambassador himself, he went to these old temples and was positive that these are archaeological Jewish temples that he wants to have the Israeli government come and investigate. And not only that, but you look at all the festivals, the omikoshi that people carry in the festivals in Japan. A lot of people have made the connection. It wasn't made for 2,000 years, but when Jewish ambassadors and representatives started coming to Japan, they realized that these are like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. These are almost by the specifications sync up amazingly. Similarly, how the omikoshi are the same size, the same specification, the same 4-cornered, angel designs and everything on them as Jewish arks from biblical times. So there's a lot of circumstantial evidence to indicate that if Japanese themselves are not a lost tribe of Israel, that there's a lot of that there have been Jewish people who have come and settled and integrated in the culture, and Japanese culture indeed itself appears to have taken some Jewish culture into it. So there's nothing but positive feelings, honestly, that I've ever seen in Japan for Jews and Jewish people, kind of fascination with them, and especially on the far right. I mean, when people talk about why they think Japan is special or why they're chosen, they'll say, well, actually, we're one of the lost Jewish tribes. So the idea, anti-Semitism is just so far detached from the mindset of Japanese people. The idea that they could be linked is just, that these vandalizations of books could be. And to top it all off, I mean, probably the most right-wing crazy guy in Parliament, was it Nariaki Nakayama from the Japan Restoration Party, who's had some real zinger presentations in Parliament so far. He actually stood up and said, he said he's sure this is someone trying to defame Japan, and he hopes that the police actually overcommit resources to finding out who's doing this. And it'll be very interesting to find out, because the government was very, very upset by it, and it's driven a lot of bad press towards Japan. So they're going to find out. In Darth JF, they actually found, no, indeed, they found black Jewish people. Well, they found Jewish people who went as far as certainly Ethiopian Jews, and there are a lot of Ethiopian Jews in Israel. And yeah, I think as far as Zimbabwe and India, and they found them. So yeah, but yeah, so that's the first thing. Wow, I can't. Thank you for the update, Per Gunnar Eriksson. I think I just heard a pained cheer, but 4-3 Swansea. Okay, so I hope go Liverpool, please don't lose. Narcissus saying that Lancashire is better than Yorkshire. What are you talking about? Well, I don't know. Actually, seriously, I don't know. It's all good. So the final part, I'm going to spend like 5-10 minutes on this. I'm going to check out. I'm just going to talk about being a father to a half. And the reason I'm going to raise this is two things that have come up in my own personal life lately. The first is, I'm getting a hard time. Well, I'm going to go to Singapore in April. I'm going to go and see my extended family again. Well, I say my extended family, my immediate family, but they're spread all over the world. And we're all coming to Singapore at the same time, which will be awesome. But again, guilt is setting in that I don't speak enough English to my son, and he's not going to be able to speak English with anybody. And my wife has also been very frustrated with that. She expects me to speak English, but she doesn't want to speak English herself. So I've been, but it's right, honestly. And she was pointing out that even apparently, and I started checking this, and it is true, a lot of the international schools, even if I'm thinking in the 3rd grade or the 4th grade, I might switch him to international school so he gets English later on. I want him to have Japanese first. She's pointing out that even if there's a foreign parent to the kid, they won't accept the kids automatically. They have to prove that they can keep up with the classes and that they have an aptitude with English. And my kid's 4, and if I'm not teaching him English now, he's losing all the years when it's easiest to do, which is true. So I'm trying hard. It's kind of... So I'm trying hard to speak more English to him. The reason why wouldn't I speak English to him in the first place? And this is an interesting thing. And I find a lot of interest in watching guys like Busan Kevin going through the same thing at the same time. I guess I see a lot of dads in Japan, of foreign dads, and often foreign dads and Japanese wives. And when they don't speak Japanese, as is the case with most of the foreign dads I know, they speak and teach English with a passion, motivated by the fear of not being able to speak in the same language as their children. And of all the many advantages and superior... Something just happened. I don't know if it's good or bad. So I guess of all the advantages that I have over that is that, even if my son grows up completely domestic, I'm always going to be able to talk to him just like I can my wife or anyone else. And in a way, it's that protection against that trend which happens that with young kids in Japan, they tend to speak kind of both languages when most of their life is spent with both their parents. And as they get older and they go to school and they have Japanese friends, they become, not only do they lose the ability with English, but they lose the interest. And this happens all over the world. This isn't a Japan phenomenon. Being from New Zealand, I have a lot of immigrant friends, and, and everyone knows about how with the second generation migrants that all that they want to do is be assimilated. All they want to do is be normal, and the parents' language is embarrassing. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases. And then you get to the 3rd generation where people start to show an interest again. But there is this fear based on losing touch and losing ability to communicate with your own kids, which I think motivates a lot of foreign dads to be very passionate about English and English education, which perhaps because I have that comfort in the reverse that I'm not passionate enough about. But at the same time, it's a real loss for my son if I don't teach him English, and if my own parents and his cousins can't speak to him, it's his loss. It's a loss for him that I'm responsible for. And indeed, I want to take him abroad and live abroad. I want to put him in an international school one day and give him the most choice and exposure to the world and cultures that I can. And if I'm not teaching him some English or speaking to him in some English, I'm not doing my job in that respect. So I've really woken up on that. And also, now he's 4, I am starting to look at schools around Tokyo. I'm completely ignorant about both the Japanese education system and the international school system. I was tweeting and Facebooking questions about this and got some great information back. I have to decide what kind of international school, how much can I pay. And that's if I do it. I am planning to send to a regular Japanese school, at least for the first few years, because I want him to get a solid base in Japanese. But even then, I know nothing about sending a kid to Japanese school. So, I guess it's, I want to prepare him so he's able to handle living abroad. Part of me says, though, I know a lot of kids from when I was growing up, from China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Korea, who came to New Zealand 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, cold. And, within a few years, they were completely natural New Zealand kids. Which I guess also gives me a sense of maybe being too relaxed about not pushing my son to learn English, that I've seen other people pick it up. But there again, you don't want to put him under that pressure, especially when I can help him out now. So I'm trying to correct that anyway. But it's tough. There's a lot to think about, I don't have any of the answers. I don't. You can only figure it out as you go along. Every kid is different. Every situation is different. But I have been lazy. And speaking Japanese is lazy in terms of that with my son, so I've got to try a bit harder, and I'm doing that, which is proving interesting. I'm actually speaking English now a lot with my son for the first time. What I find interesting as well is that I know I appreciate this from having come to Japan and learned Japanese. My son seems to be really switched on to context. He's not just, sometimes I know he doesn't understand the words that I'm saying, but he's clearly figuring it out accurately, and sometimes not accurately. Sometimes he just blanks out. But I went through exactly the same thing when I came to Japan 15 years ago. It's kind of nostalgic for me to see my son reacting to my English, but it gives me no end of joy to see that he's faking it. Even when he doesn't get it, he figures it out accurately most of the time. And you can see he smiles when he can tell that he was right. You can tell he was guessing, he was hoping, he was understanding his dad right. And he got it. When he can tell that he got it, he has that little relief, which is nice. So, it's that's what parenthood's about. It's about the small little joys and the small little moments. Had a great day with him today. Had his first day out on the bicycle today with training wheels on. We thought we'd just go and practice on a nearby street where there's no cars. He ended up riding 3 kilometers. He actually did a full loop near where the Olympic Stadium is. We picked up and went over there where they have all the roads sealed off on Sundays, so you can practice bicycling around there. He was amazing. He did 2 loops, and it's so great because I can't wait to go around bicycling with him in Tokyo, which is a great city for bicycling. So that is 1 hour 15 minutes. I've been on way too long. Final comments. Russ-san, nothing wrong with Yorkshire. Indeed not, sir. Ahmed, I'm very glad to hear that you have no problem with Jews. As why should anyone have any problem with anyone? Honestly, But Ahmed learned French by watching TV in French, which I guess you get in Algeria, and I'm surprised you didn't mind doing that. But yeah, exactly. French is an awesome language. Indeed. I'm going to wrap it up soon, but. Narcissus is saying, at least he'll have a single version of English. His cousin Scottish has a Kiwi husband. I see. His Scottish cousin has a Kiwi husband. They spend the last few years of their lives in Birmingham, so the accents are hilarious. I can relate to that. My sister is now a British citizen. She's Australian. She grew up as an Australian with a New Zealand accent, which is kind of bad enough. And then she moved to UK, where she went to university first in Scotland, in the university city, the Scottish university city, and then to York, So she had the Yorkshire and the Scottish accents. Then she married a guy from Cornwall. And I started noticing after about the third year in the UK, she stopped pronouncing T. She started saying, oh, it's just a little one. And I found that hilarious. She's genuinely, her accent's gone to hell. I just, all the Japanese seems to have done to my English is make me sound more South African. And, that's totally okay with me. I can live with that. It's a good language. It's a good accent. I have a video of me giving a halftime talk. There's some South African friends in my team, and I think it rubbed off a little bit at one point when I was playing rugby when I started. I've got a team of me giving an impassioned halftime talk to my rugby team in a thick South African accent. It really scared me watching the video. It woke me up to be careful. Accents are funny, but there again, that shows that your brain is locked in. It's a good thing. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. Hope you all are well. It's fantastic. The comments are great today. I really do appreciate. Thank you for these because we got through an hour of just talking back and forth, which is what this is about. As usual, I'm your man in Tokyo with not all the answers, but always some good discussion. I really appreciate the questions, and we'll see you again next week. Definitely going to have Jake Adelstein soon on 2.5 Oyajis, probably not this week, but next week. That will be awesome. I'll be back here next Sunday. And it's always good to see all of you. So I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to do one more refresh of the comments, and I'm going to check out and say goodbye. But congrats to Canada on the final goal. Go Liverpool, because I want peace in the house. And good night to you all. Peace. And okay, let's see if I can switch off the live stream. Bada bing, bada bing, bada bing. Stop streaming. Bye. Peace.